take a breath. It's something we say all the time when someone is overwhelmed, when they're upset, when they're frustrated, when they're afraid. Take a breath. It's such a common advice that we rarely stop to think about it. But have you ever wondered why? Why is take a breath something people say in moments of stress, uncertainty, and emotion? What is it about the breath that seems to help? Here's something I've noticed. When people are worried, they often hold their breath without realizing it. When they are concentrating, their breath becomes shallow. When they are waiting for important news, sitting in a difficult conversation, or carrying a heavy decision, something changes. The breath changes. And often we don't notice until someone points it out. We tend to think of stress as something that happens in the mind. But very often the breath notices first. Long before people talked about mindfulness, breath work, or nervous system regulation, traditional Reiki practitioners were paying attention to the breath. Not because breathing is complicated, but because it reveals something important. Our state of mind, our level of presence, and our connection to ourselves. So today, I'd like to explore what traditional Reiki understands about the breath and why sometimes the simple act of becoming aware of it can change far more than we expect. Before we continue, welcome! If you're new here, my name is Nasreen and I'm the Canada chapter head for the Japan Reiki Association. On this channel, we explore traditional Japanese Reiki and practical ways to bring more awareness, balance, and connection into everyday life. In recent videos, we've explored the idea that your nervous system isn't broken and how the body often notices stress before the mind does. Today, I'd like to continue that conversation through something we all do every day, yet rarely pay attention to. The breath. Not as a breathing technique, not as something we need to perfect, but as a simple and powerful way to become more aware of ourselves. Because the truth is, we are always breathing. The question is whether we are aware of it. The breath we don't notice. Most of us don't think much about our breathing. After all, it's happening all the time. We don't have to remember to do it. We don't schedule it. We don't usually pay attention to it at all. And yet, our breath is constantly responding to what is happening around us and within us. Think about the last time you received an email you weren't expecting. Or when someone said, "Can we talk?" Or when you were waiting for important news, what happened to your breathing? Many people don't notice it in the moment, but if we pay attention, something often changes. The breath becomes shorter, shallower. Sometimes we hold it altogether. I've noticed this in myself. I'll be concentrating on something, reading an email, working through a problem, or thinking about a difficult conversation. And suddenly I realize I've barely been breathing. Then the moment passes. The email gets answered, the decision gets made, the tension eases, and a deep breath naturally appears, almost as if the body has been waiting for permission to let go. It's fascinating when you start to notice it. The breath changes throughout the day, often reflecting what is happening in our minds long before we consciously acknowledge it. In our previous video, we explored how the stomach often notices stress before the mind does. The breath is very similar. It often changes before we realize we are worried. before we realize we are rushing, before we realize we are caring too much. The body is already responding, and the breath is one of the ways it communicates that to us, which is perhaps why so many traditions have paid attention to breathing for centuries. Not because breathing is something we need to master, but because it is something we can learn to notice. And when we do, we begin to understand ourselves a little more clearly. What Reiki practitioners observed about breath. Long before people were talking about breath work, nervous system regulation, or mindfulness apps, Reiki practitioners were paying attention to the breath. Not because breathing needed to be fixed, not because there was a perfect way to breathe, but because the breath offers a window into our inner state. When we are rushing, the breath often rushes with us. When we are worried, the breath may become shallow. When we are calm, the breath often becomes softer and more natural. The breath reflects us, and because of that, it can become a powerful point of awareness. One of the things I appreciate about traditional Reiki is that it doesn't begin by asking us to control the breath. It begins by inviting us to notice it, to become aware of what is already happening, to observe without judgment, to listen. In a recent video, we explored the idea that your nervous system isn't broken. And in another, we explored how the stomach often notices stress before the mind does. The breath is another doorway into that same awareness. Another way of noticing what is happening within us. Noticing when we are rushing. Noticing when we are holding on. Noticing when we are carrying more than we realize. And perhaps most importantly, noticing when we are disconnected from ourselves. Because when we begin to pay attention to the breath, we often discover something surprising. The breath is happening in the present moment. Always. No matter where our thoughts are, no matter what happened yesterday, no matter what might happen tomorrow, the breath is here. And when we become aware of it, even briefly, it has a way of bringing us back here too. Experience it for yourself. So rather than continuing to talk about the breath, I'd like to invite you to notice it for yourself. If you're driving or doing something that requires your attention, you can simply listen. But if you're somewhere comfortable, perhaps you can join me. There is nothing you need to achieve, nothing you need to change, and no special way you need to breathe. Just follow along as best as you can. To begin, simply notice your breath without changing it, without making it deeper, without trying to relax. Just notice. Notice where you feel the breath in the body. Notice its rhythm. Notice its length. Notice its quality. Now, imagine a ball of light filled with positive energy just above your head. As you breathe naturally, allow that ball of light to slowly descend from the top of the head to the forehead, to the throat, moving gently and naturally with the breath. to continue downward through the chest to the solar plexus, and finally to the Tanden, the lower abdomen, the body's energetic center. Allow the ball of light to rest there. Now bring your awareness to the Tanden and simply breathe. There is nothing to force, nothing to control. Just breathe naturally. Notice your breath now. Has anything changed? Perhaps the breath feels longer. Perhaps it feels softer. Perhaps it feels more settled. Or perhaps it feels exactly the same. All of those experiences are welcome. For the next few breaths, allow your awareness to remain at the Tanden, breathing naturally, resting naturally, simply being here. What we've done together is very simple. We haven't changed who we are. We haven't solved every problem. We haven't forced ourselves to relax. We've simply brought our awareness into the body. And sometimes that simple act of awareness is enough to help us reconnect with ourselves. Enough to notice the breath that has been there all along. What your breath reveals about your state of mind. One of the reasons I find the breath so fascinating is that it often reveals things we haven't fully recognized yet. We tend to think stress lives in our thoughts, but stress leaves clues throughout the body, in the nervous system, in the stomach, and in the breath. The breath is constantly responding to our experience of life. When we are rushing, it often rushes with us. When we are worried, it may become shallow. When we are overwhelmed, we may find ourselves holding it without even realizing it. And yet, most of the time, we are paying attention to the thing that's causing the stress, rather than noticing how we are responding to it. The email, the deadline, the difficult conversation, the uncertainty, the thing we are waiting for, our attention goes there, and the breath quietly follows. I've noticed this in my own life. Sometimes I'll catch myself thinking about something that hasn't happened yet, a future conversation, a decision that needs to be made, something I'm trying to figure out. And when I stop and notice my breath, I realize I'm no longer fully here. Part of me has already left this moment. The breath has a way of revealing that, not as a criticism, not as a problem, just as information. A gentle reminder that my mind may be somewhere else, while my body remains here. And perhaps that's one of the reasons take a breath has remained such a common advice. Not because a single breath magically solves our problems, but because it helps us return. Return to this moment, return to the body, return to ourselves. We don't always get to choose what happens in life. We don't always get to choose the challenges we face. But in any moment, we can notice the breath we are taking. And in doing so, we can choose how we meet that moment. To me, that's where the real value of awareness begins. Not in changing life, but in changing our relationship with it. Because this breath is happening now, and so is life. So let's return to where we began. Take a breath. It's such a simple phrase, one we hear throughout our lives, and perhaps now we can hear it a little differently. Not as a command, not as a technique, but as an invitation to pause, to notice, to return. Throughout this video, we've explored how the breath often changes before we are consciously aware of what we are feeling, how it reflects our state of mind, how it quietly responds to the way we are moving through life. And perhaps that's why the breath has always held an important place in traditional Reiki practice. Not because it needs to be controlled, but because it helps us become aware. Aware of ourselves, aware of the present moment, aware of the life that is unfolding right now. In Reiki, the breath is not something we use to escape life. It is something that helps us return to it. Return to the body. Return to the moment. Return to ourselves. The goal isn't perfect breath. The goal isn't to stay calm all the time. The goal isn't to eliminate every challenge we face. The goal is to notice when we've drifted away and to have a way to come back again and again. If this is your first time here, welcome. On this channel, we explore traditional Japanese Reiki and practical ways to bring more awareness, balance, and connection into everyday life. At the Japan Reiki Association, we teach Reiki not simply as a healing technique, but as a lifelong practice, a practice that helps us become more aware of ourselves, more aware of our thoughts, more aware of our habits, more aware of the moments when we've drifted away from ourselves. And perhaps most importantly, it gives us practical tools to return, whether through self-healing, meditation, breathing practices, or simply placing our hands on ourselves and pausing for a moment. Because awareness is only the beginning. Reiki is a path of returning again and again. If that resonates with you, I'd love to have you subscribe and join us. You'll also find information below about learning Reiki, guided self-healing practices, and the Japan Reiki Association. Until next time, take care of yourself. And remember, the breath is already here. The question is whether we are aware of it. ありがとうございます。